Hello, everybody. This is Stuff I Find Interesting. This is number 45. Number 45, can you believe it? 45. So that was Foxy, Get Off. It's about a cat being somewhere it shouldn't, and you yell at it. You say, hey, get off of that. No, really, that's what the song's about. But it's a fun little song. So the first two things that I'm going to talk about that are interesting, which is what this is all about, it's just stuff I find interesting, was I was somehow ended up in Montesquieu land. I was like, Montesquieu, what the and it's like all these stuff. Look at all this stuff. Center of gravity. Let's look that up. Let's look up, see what Montesquieu said about center of gravity. It is very apparent that once was the sea is now land, because we see beds of shells on almost all the mountains, and there are pea shells found in the cabinets of the curious. In the lands or species we do not know, we even find animals here which are only in China. These things cannot be explained by the flood as we give it, but by some even greater accident. For example, the center of the gravity of the earth were to change, as for example, if the waters which are in place of the earth were to rupture, a cavity would be filled with air and entered into it, for there would be a transport of the sea elsewhere. All right, he lost me. But what's important about Montesquieu? What's important about Montesquieu? So let me tell you about what's important about Montesquieu. So he is the guy that a lot of, our Constitution's based on the American Constitution, that is, based upon a lot of his thoughts and ideas, including separation of church and state, separation of powers, very important. He had a lot of very strong things to say about a government where the powers of all the powers are just all entwined all together. So he was a thinker, a philosopher, talked a lot, wrote a lot. He seems to be, not to minimize his importance when he was alive, but he's one of those guys that has become more important in death than perhaps in life, due to the extraordinary output of ideas and words that he created. So there's Montesquieu, basically the founder of the American Constitution, in a way. And a lot of other governments also based their constitution or government charter, if you will, upon his ideas. So he had profound influences. Here, I'm going to go to AI. What does AI have to say about Montesquieu? Let's see. He had theory of separation of church and powers, checks and balances, individual rights, democratic institutions, and he was very opposed to despots. I think Montesquieu, if he were alive today, would go, no, guys, that's not what I meant. That is clearly not what I freaking meant. Look at you. Just look at you. Separation. You gotta keep them separated, not separated. Okay, so moving on, let's talk about China. Now, China, as you know, is very old, right? We think of China, and it's always just kind of been there. Excuse me. I cleaned under my bed today. I cannot even tell you how dusty it was. I'm still coughing up stuff. Anyway, we think of China as old, right? Very old. But China was something else before it was China. It was not China. It was other stuff. So there were other things that came before that a lot of Americans probably don't know about. I know I didn't know about it. So there was this group of peoples called the Xiongnu. I think I'm saying that correctly. And they were so crazy and out of control that they were one of the reasons that China actually started to come together to become what we call China, because they were like, heck this shit. We're going to join up and we're going to fight these dudes off. Not only that, they started to build the wall. So these people from long ago that I've never heard of, and I had to look up how to pronounce, were directly responsible for China, modern China, and the wall. And they were not primitive, obviously. If they could whoop China's butt, clearly they had something going on. So I was like, well, let's see what they were up to. Let's see, we had an attack, another attack, a defeat, another attack, another invasion, another attack, another invasion, another attack, an ambush, engage in combat, raid, attack, raid, attack, defeat, pillage, battle, and it goes on and on and on through the centuries. But when we say the Zhongnu, which would be the people that live in this area here, it sounds like it's one type of people, much like China. But much like China, it's actually a bunch of different peoples, Proto-Tibetan peoples, and that's why this particular map says Proto-Tibetan peoples. But that would have been the Zhongnu. So the Zhongnu would be basically what is Mongolia today, upper, and for a long time they reigned supreme. They were the ones. Then you had like the three kingdom thing, and it gets really confusing. I looked up a whole timeline to see if I could wrap my head around the history of that part of the world. It's a lot. It's not something you can do just like in an hour on a Sunday afternoon. It's just not, that's just arrogant, right? Not that it stopped me from trying. So if we go back that far, back to where the Zhongnu, when they were around, they were not primitive. For example, a flush toilet. This was recently unearthed. I believe this year it was unearthed, but it was the only toilet unearthed at any ancient Chinese palace archaeological site and first ever flush toilet excavated in China. Now, when they say flush toilet, that's a little bit generous of a term, because what we're really talking about is perhaps something that was a little bit more, not quite like this, a little bit more sophisticated, but it was the same general idea. Like, yes, there was a flush toilet, but there was not necessarily the same type of system that we use today on the other end when the sewage comes out. For example, in the city I live in, sewage goes to a treatment plant, it gets treated, and then bottoms up, right? And this particular time it was used for agriculture. So the poop, the pee, whatever, would go right back into where the animals were. Interesting, right? I was like, makes sense, I guess, right? Chopsticks not included. This is a travel blog. One of the things that I find really interesting, I guess, I don't know, I consider myself a little bit of an internet archaeologist. Well, maybe I'm just nosy. I think I'm just nosy. But this is a blog from 2012, and it's these two young folks, super duper in love, traveling around China, taking amazing pictures of things. And I say to myself, I wonder where they are. I wonder where Devin and I forget the name of the other girl. It'll be in the links. You can look at their lovely photography. I ended up there from Toilet Land. Somehow I ended up on that page. So there you have it. But I wanted to draw your attention to this picture. And I wanted to draw your attention to this picture because I have a reoccurring dream that I'm boating around a lake in a tiny little rowboat. And there's all these structures that look kind of like this, natural structures that look like this. And underneath those mountainous structures is a flooded city. And what I find interesting, and I think I showed you guys this before, this is Mall World on Reddit. And these are people that dream about the same places night after night. Not necessarily a mall, but do you find yourself going back to the same places? Do you find yourself having the same themes, meeting the same people? Maybe meeting people you've never met in real life. You've only met in your dream world. I have people like that. Places you've never been in real life. You've only been in your dream world. I have places like that. And I have places and I have people and I have plots that continue on and on and on and on. And when I'm in that dream, I say to myself, oh yeah, last week I was talking to Johnny about the underground storage of food because apocalypse weighs heavily in my dreams. But my point is, and the reason why I bring it up other than it being interesting, is I think that some of you might feel this way. You might say, yeah, my dream world's really crazy. Like all kinds of stuff happens. I'm not saying we all go to the same place at night and hang out with each other. I don't necessarily think that that's the case. But I think there's enough to dreams that it goes beyond science, or what we can call science right now. Like we have to go into like more quantum stuff. I think that's dimensional stuff. That's just my own personal opinion. Not all the time. Sometimes you dream about losing your teeth. Being in high school with no clothes on. Those are familiar, dreams that kind of everybody has. What I'm talking about is a whole world that you've created in your brain that you go to all the time, that does not exist in real life and is inhabited with people that don't exist in real life, that you know of. But yet when you're there, it feels familiar. And there's a plot that continues. So if that's you, you might want to check out The Mall World. So I found these rad infographics about the Forbidden City, because I was looking up stuff about China, about the clothing that was worn. There's one in here that really blew me away. I mean, just look at that. The Forbidden City is also a topic that cannot be completely learned in like an hour on a Sunday. I could probably spend 10 episodes talking about the Forbidden City because there's just so much to it. This goes into, as you scroll down, it kind of, it morphs and it does stuff. Look at that. You see that? You see what I mean? It's sort of, I don't know, it's fancy. As you scroll, stuff happens. But it talks about how it was built, the techniques that were used. No, it wasn't built by aliens. There were water. Looks like they might have used water, sand, pulleys. 40 to 50 men. 70-kilometer distance on these stones. Oh my God. Wow. It would take, it boggles the brain to think about. It would take a long time. And that got me thinking of other cities. Like this isn't necessarily the Forbidden City, but this is, I always mess this up. Tenochtitlan. Did I say that right? Probably not. But this is Mexico City. This is a 3D mock-up of what it would have looked like at its height about 500 years ago. If you were to be running around Mexico City, this is perhaps what you would have seen. As you can see, well laid out streets. Design, we've got canals. There's a center. It looks very organized. The architecture is beautiful and unique. There are probably some liberties taken with this 3D mock-up, but for the most part, it's based solidly on archaeology and what we know from the time, and is done. I think this guy is an actual scholar. Isn't that beautiful? The lake. Building a city on a lake involves a constant fight against the water. A complex system of irrigation ditches, canals, locks, and a 16-kilometer-long barrier provides the Mexico with fresh water from the mountains. Thanks to this compartmentalization, the city is surrounded by brackish water, and the salt water is contained in the eastern end of the lake. An aqueduct that runs from Chapultepec provides the city with drinking water. So they had it going on. They probably also had, I don't know what kind of plumbing they had, but I think much like the Chinese, it was a little bit more sophisticated than we think of for the time. But this is 500 years ago. That city back in China was 2,500 years ago. So, technology and industry. A selection of technology images from the British Library's Mechanical Curator collection, discovered and tagged. I was expecting something momentous. If you're like me, you like seeing things with gears and wheels and balls that probably light up and stuff you can spin. This is a Frick coreless engine, so this actually does something. It's not just pretty. But I love looking at these old pieces of equipment. And I think a lot of people do, right? I mean, that's how the whole steampunk thing happened. People like me looked at stuff like this and went, ooh, gears, ooh, pulleys, ooh, things moving. I think it's a whole, it's a whole aesthetic. Heating by hot water. That would have been pretty ahead of its time when it first came out. I'm not sure what that is. I don't know what that is. This is a condenser. It looks like a piece of scientific equipment. I can't imagine what it might be, though. This is it looks like some sort of farming equipment. Like, instead of going forwards and backwards, you either sit on one side or the other side? Or do two people sit? I don't know. That's fascinating. So this will be in the links so that you too can bug out over all this stuff. The Rothschilds had another Christie's auction recently. Well, not had, they're having. It's from 7 to 21 November. The most recent auction made $62 million. And you might say to yourself, what kind of stuff do they have, Laura? I'm going to show you what kind of stuff they have. So we've got paintings, enamels, ceramics. I do like enamels. Let's see what we got for enamels. They won't let you blow it up. A Limoges. Limoges is a dish, ceramic, porcelain. Porcelain? They make fine china, like very fine, like very expensive. For example, when I did antiques and collectibles and I got in a bunch of dishware, the first thing I would do is flip it over and I'd say, let this be a Limoges. And usually it wasn't. But every once in a while, I think I had one. I think I had a Limoges teacup set, and it was like, had something to do with Japan. It might have been made in occupied Japan, or it was special for some reason. It made like, I think I got like $300 for it. I packed that thing like you could drop it off the roof of a 50-story building and have it still survive. I mean, the person that opened that must have hated my guts at the end of the day. So there you have it, Rothschilds, rich people, and their Limoges. As I was looking up rich people's stuff, I found this. Lady with a shrimp. Lady with a shrimp. That's it. That's all I got. It's in the Chrysler Museum of Art. If you feel like you want to see this in person, that's where you would go to see Woman with a Shrimp. Actually, it's Woman with a Shrimp, not Lady with a Shrimp. But I think Lady with a Shrimp sounds better. This is a timeline of China. This will also be in the links if you feel like you want to wade into it and figure stuff out a little bit more. I was not successful. I was like, then what happened? What? This is, this is some 18th century art, or is it 17th century? Late 1700s, early 1800s. This is how the rich people lived at the Valernisko-Kuzminski estate. And it's a rich person's house near Moscow. But I thought the pictures were particularly detailed, and I liked how you can blow them up. So I was looking at these pictures, and I was like, wow. Like, look at that. Could you imagine just having the whole day to just, like, run around the garden with your dog? That probably wouldn't be too good for me. Too much free time is not good for me. So anyhow, that got me to thinking. And I'm like, I wonder what happened to that place. Does it still survive? And the answer is sort of. There's a park now. Some parts of the original structure are still standing. Most of it is in complete disarray. One of the things that I find extremely interesting is the Masonic entrance of this particular building and the odd shape of the windows. I mean, we're in Russia, so it's very weird, right? So this is a whole park. You can walk around the park, the estate. This is not old. This is part of the park that was created, but that's not original to the estate. What you're seeing right there. As you can see, it's very picturesque, very beautiful. Aw, sad lion. So anyhow, you get the idea. Interesting place, right? And the guy who designed that particular estate did all kinds of crazy things. Like he was like the mad scientist of Russian architecture. This is, who is that? That's the architect. So that's what he looked like. He looks very sure of himself. He's like, I'm a good architect. There you have it. Watercolors of a beautiful estate. The beautiful estate itself right now. And the architect of that estate. Surrounded by the ladies. Ladies. Or maybe it's the guy. I'm not sure. Either way, he looks very happy to be where he is. This is a photographer called Gérald Depranchet. I believe I've talked about him before. And he was one of the earliest photographers of the Middle East in the 1840s. And this is when you had to drag all that equipment. Like, it was a lot. It was a lot. It was not something that the average person could take upon. Just be like, oh, hey, I'm going to go to the Middle East and take pictures. Like, you had to have some money. But the main reason why I clicked on this, and you can read more about him, is this picture right here. Look at that. So that picture is of the Roman Forum viewed from Palatine Hill. I've never been. I hear it's beautiful. This particular photograph does not look the same now as it does in this picture. A lot of this stuff is now gone, which is why these older pictures are so important, because you can see the stuff that's no longer there, and it has a totally different flavor than if I were to go to the same exact spot right now and look. In fact, let's do that. View of the Roman Forum from Palatine Hill. Let's see what we got. Still impressive, no doubt. See? Still impressive. But definitely not the same. Not the same. Not the same. All right. This is a dog called the Hare Indian dog, and it was used, it was domesticated. I think it was made to hunt otters. It was about the size of a fox. It was very playful, but not very docile, hated being confined. I don't know what it did. Maybe I'm thinking of another. I was looking at extinct breeds of dogs. So there were dogs that used to exist that don't exist anymore. But I thought this guy was cute, which is why I stuck him here. So there are all kinds of animals that don't exist anymore. I mean, that would happen even if man weren't around, right? With competition and change in the environment over time. This is a bottle. And at one point, it contained wine. But not just any wine. It was called coca wine. And coca wine was wine and cocaine. And that particular cute little item is from the DEA Museum. The DEA Museum is where you can learn about America's connection to drugs, including public policy, federal drug law enforcement, and the work of drug enforcement administrative employees around the world. Its all-new innovative learning environment includes interactives, artifacts, and displays that engage every guest in the science and history of drug misuse prevention. So there are exhibits that change all the time, but there are some things that stay that stay. You can walk through the museum and you can look. This was something I meant to bring up earlier, and I did not bring it up. No, actually, I'm right on time with it. I was going to talk about, where is it? So, the DEA Museum would probably have one of these. So this is an opium pipe. This came into my antiques collectible shop. And as you can see, you would put the stuff here. And I think you would put your mouth there, but I'm not. It looks like something's missing. I'm not sure. I'm not really hip up on opium smoking. Not an expert in that. But that's an item that I got in it doesn't look that special, but it's sterling silver, and the that green part is I believe malachite, which is not something that you want to ingest and set on fire or have anything to do with any inhaling, or it's not good for you. I forget why. This is a Singer sewing machine that I took a picture of once upon a time, long time ago. That is a hand-cranked sewing machine. I had a whole reason for going in here, though, and it just completely escapes me. Okay, well, moving on. There's a cool line. Have a cool line. I wish I still had him. He was very cool. Like, there are some things that, you come across in your life and you say, oh, I wish I still had that. I wish I still had him. Now it's conspiracy time, so I'm going to take off my sweater because it's starting to get a little hot in here. Okay. So scientists made a quantum object called an Alice ring. So, you know how scientists have been taking particles and blowing them up with other particles and using magnets and all kinds of stuff. Anyway, I don't understand any of that. And even if I had a year of Sundays to study that, I still probably wouldn't. But this vortex ring flips the magnetic charge of any monopole that passes through it, creating an anti-monopole. So it sounds kind of like, oh, so what? But things that pass through it completely reverse and become the complete opposite. So this has pretty huge indications, and I also like the fact that it's called an Alice pole. So scientists are very excited about this. It has implications for technology. I'm not exactly sure what those implications are, but it's fascinating to think about that there are these rings that are randomly created that you can pass something through or even look through, and it changes that object. It's quantum spin, it's magnetic pole. I mean, it's just crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. This is the abstract, if you want to read it, that goes into monopoles and vortices, and I mean, amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. Okay. Now, so that's not really a conspiracy. That was just a news article. Now we're moving into conspiracy. So in Siberia, there is an area where the land is the same as it was. How can I explain this? Hang on. Give me a second. Hold on. My brain is short-circuiting. I didn't get a nap today. I did a social event. And I cleaned my bedroom. So I'm like glitching out here. So there's a part in Siberia where stuff's weird, and it's called the Perm anomaly. So there's this old ancient land that comes up that used to exist, that doesn't really exist anymore, and it's squished up, and it's in this part of Siberia. And it comes from this super plume. And you might say, okay, well, what's the big deal? What's, why are we talking about this right now? And why are we talking about this with regards to conspiracy? And the conspiracy is that this particular area, it can't be reached. I got kicked out. Oh my God. This is a song that someone wrote about this area that I'm talking about right now. So the Perm anomaly, which I'm not explaining well at all, seems to attract paranormal activity. There we go. I got it out. You might say, what kind of paranormal activity, Laura? What do you mean? And things happen like UFOs. So this is called the Molotov Triangle. It has a long extraterrestrial history. As far back as the early 19th century, local peasants saw flying objects in the sky here. During the Soviet period, it became one of the first areas in the country where UFOs were seen. Eyewitnesses spoke of mysterious flying objects of different sizes and forms, red and blue glowing balls. I've seen the red glowing balls, and huge black humanoid figures. Have not seen the huge black humanoid figures. Some even said that they had telepathic contact with these visitors. And there's other places that you can look at where there's crazy, weird, strange activity. Some of them we've probably talked about before. But it's interesting that where there's a geological anomaly, that there are unique, seemingly paranormal events happening. This is about the Koleokupa Triangle and about UFOs. This is a government report. Um, Hopefully nobody shows up at my door. You know, Miss Lane. All right. So this is the academic article about the Permian anomaly. So this is someone who lives in this town, and there's it's this area is kind of known as like Russia's Roswell, and there's an actual alien sculpture that you can go see. And even though it's, you know, kind of fun, haha, like this particular area of the world are not really known for their sense of humor. So it's not like a haha, it's actually very serious. This is where people will also talk. So the researchers divide Molekba into several zones, and each of these is characterized by its own phenomena. For instance, there is a substantial deformed tree on the site of one of the destroyed houses in the zone. Who knows what force made it twist like that? Probably a microburst. The other place is called Witches' Rings. Local guides claim that when you try to take a photo of anything within the zone, the picture presents with unusual white balls with a black center. Another area is quite small and surrounded by a birch grove. If you touch these trees at frosty weather, they remain warm no matter what. According to eyewitnesses, flying UFO ships are easily noticeable over the grove. Talking about the phenomena related directly to the UFOs, the so-called gate can be mentioned. This gate belongs to the area called Snake Hill. There is a specific path, and if one stands at the beginning of it and tries to relax the eyes, it is possible to see a small gate hovering off the ground. Some people have even claimed to have gone inside the gate and have spoken with the aliens. But this enterprising young person who lives in this area is saying, hey, Hollywood, come film your stuff here. There's lots of cool stuff going on. So it's kind of, they're trying to capitalize on the whole Roswell, Russian Roswell thing, which is smart. But it doesn't diminish the fact that there's really weird stuff that goes on there. That's fact. Weird stuff happens there. Is it paranormal? Probably not. There's probably an explanation of some kind that we just don't know about. What am I doing? Okay, so now we're going to get really crazy and talk about Kozyrev mirrors. Now, the Y files, you can just Google the Y files, the guy's huge, about Kozyrev mirrors. And he did an episode that is very good. He's got like fade-ins and music and dramatic pauses and stuff that comes up on the screen. You'll get none of that here, just so you know. But we're still going to talk. Ineffectively, probably, but we're going to talk about the Kozyrev mirror. Now, the Kozyrev mirror is simply a tube of aluminum wrapped in a very specific way. So as you can see in this picture here, it kind of curves on itself. Here's a blueprint. If you feel like you want to make one, you could get this and do your thing. So you might say, well,
and see what we can discover.
So here it is. This will be in the links. This is the guy talking about Kozyrev mirrors. Now, when you go into the mirror, time seems to stop and stand on its head. And it might even be possible, people have said that if they've laid in that tube long enough, that the tube completely disappears and the whole normal world around them disappears and they go somewhere or someone else. Fascinating stuff, right? That's wild. The really wild thing is that when it's tested scientifically, there are anomalies that can't be explained. So there's something to it. And I think it comes down to what's called sacred geometry. I think that I cannot put my thoughts into words about what I think about sacred geometry. We might have to talk about that next episode because I'm fading out, guys. But we're at the end. Now we're just going to look at cool stuff. This is the world in 1815. So this is only 200 years ago. 200 years ago. I thought that was kind of neat because that's really not that long ago, because we were talking about 500 years ago with Mexico City, right, on the Lake City with the irrigation and stuff. And then we were talking about Shaanxi, which has the flushable toilets, and that's 2,500 years ago. This is only 200 years ago. I got to imagine a lot more has happened in that space than we know or are told about. This is Jericho, the historical site of Jericho that appears in the Bible. This is what it looks like. Clearly there's more to it in the earth, and probably much of the original structure has been toppled. But it looks very humble, does it not? Such an important site. Let's look at Jericho today. If we look at Jericho today, actually it doesn't look like it's that much different. It looks like they've kept it the way that it was found. So this is ancient Jericho. This is what it would have looked like, and it was the first walled city in history. So we seem to have a theme going on here with walled cities. But it's sort of would have been an outer barrier, an inner barrier. You can see probably the most important person in the whole thing would have lived like right in the middle. The round houses were made with adobe, and they were sort of put together kind of like igloos. The houses had stone foundations, clay brick structure. The courtyards, so there were lots of courtyards. That's where the cooking was done, was in the courtyard. What else have we got here? Looks like there was a water and canal system, sheep breeding, and cultivated plants. And there were even 2-story houses that the richer people had. Very interesting, I would say. This is an artist I like. That's all. It's a pretty picture, right? We're going to save that. This is a bumper sticker that, it's sold out. Well, it's a pigeon, and it says, "I'm doing my best." Here it is. And this cracks me up. Now, why does this crack me up? Why does this make me laugh? Why do I want to buy this sticker from this person? Because pigeons make really dumb nests. Look at this pigeon. Look at this guy. That one's actually kind of interesting, right? I would say. So this is how pigeons make nests. And we're making fun of them, but in actuality, pigeons if humans didn't exist, pigeons would be building their nests on ledges. And for pigeons, the nest is different than for other birds. The only purpose of the nest is to keep the eggs from rolling off the ledge. It doesn't need to make them look pretty. They don't need to be fully encircled. They just sit there. And the mom sits, or the dad sits on the eggs, and they hatch. But there are periods of time where the eggs are just kind of sitting there. Like, look at that one. That's a little baby. So they will lay them anywhere and everywhere, which is why I thought that sticker was very funny. This was found. So this is This is found paper or found photo. So this is like you're randomly walking around town and you find a piece of paper and you pick it up and you go, what does it say? If you love me so much, then why haven't I heard from you in forever? So these are random notes found by random people like yourself, and they are submitted for personal amusement. But some of them are actually kind of profound. And some of them are very thought-provoking, and which I guess would be the same as profound. Although you could have thought-provoking, but not necessarily profound thought-provoking. But I digress. What the heck even is that? So these are people that existed or still exist. Interesting, right? This is a machine that I've decided that I want. And what it does is it generates this foam using 3D technology. And then this little blade. Wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. This little blade goes whoosh. And look at that. And then it just floats up in the air. But you could have it say anything. You could have it say ass. Or hello. Or wow. I thought that was fun. And remember back in the day, like when I was a kid, you got those bottles of bubbles, and you'd have to like stick your hand in there and get them all slimy, and you'd pull out and you go. That's what it was like. This is the Eclectic Light Company, and I think this is a tech guy because he writes about Macintosh, gadgets, and computers. But he also talks about art. And he updates this thing all the time, and he always has really cool stuff. The best of 2022's painting and articles 1. Your favorite paintings and painters. The best of 2017. Let's look at painting the blustery wind. Here in the Northeast, it's getting to be that time of year where stuff is going to get blustery. So this website has really good art to look at and kind of poke through. Stuff you're not going to see. You're not going to see other places. And what I really, look at that one. What I really enjoy about this particular person is their consistency. They post all the time. And I can appreciate that because I don't post all the time. As you well know. I get distracted. This is one that I thought would be appropriate. This is Autumn Leaves. Oh, I just sounded like a New Yorker, didn't I? Autumn. You got them autumn leaves. Today I went to northern Dutchess County. I'm in lower Dutchess County. And even though the difference is only 20 miles away, the trees had no leaves on them anymore. And down here we still have some colors, like the oak trees are still hanging on. So we are actually done. We are at a time. That is the end. This is Droid Bishop. I kind of like his stuff. And definitely going to turn that down. But it's Sunday. This was not my best work. I say that every week, though. I guess it's never my best work. I guess it's just, it is what it is. All the links will be in the thing. And I will be around when I launch it to chat if anybody wants to chat. Although, by the time you hear this part, if you're watching it, we would have already chatted, so it makes me saying that really fucking dumb. At any rate, I hope everybody has a fabulous week. Do the thing, right? You know the thing that you got to do. Do that thing. Just kill it, crush it. Don't even think about it. Just do it. Right? That drawer that needs cleaning out is making you crazy. Do it. Clean it out, right? You thinking about going to the gym? Do it. I say that to myself too. I'm very bad at doing it. But I'll tell you what I am going to do. I'm going to say goodbye. And I'm going to play Talos Principle 2, which came out on Friday.